Welcome to the Confident Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Anne, mama of two, holistic pregnancy and pediatric sleep consultant, and the founder of Empowered Decisions. In our seasons together, I'm here to help you step into your inner confidence from pregnancy to motherhood. Whether you are preparing to meet your baby or integrating into new mom life, this is a safe space with education and support for your journey. Join me as we raise the vibe of our motherhood collective. Welcome back to the Confident Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Anne, a holistic pregnancy and infant and toddler sleep coach, and your podcast host today. And today we're talking about a real subject. Not that all the other subjects aren't real, but a real subject in the sense that majority of moms face this sort of shift, adjustment, integration, emotions when you have a baby and you become a mom and you have to return to work. And this goes back almost 8 years for me now when I had my first son. And there's layers to this topic tonight that I want to dive into because I titled this episode, corporate dropout turned infant and toddler sleep coach, but I chose that for the mom life that I was looking for. But it wasn't as simple as that decision. And there was so much that I was going through that kind of led me to that decision. And I know there's so many other women that are facing those sorts of realizations when you become a mom, that death and the rebirth of this change in your life and what newness it then brings into your life. And I've shared with so many other mom friends and people that are close to me, over the years about how oftentimes becoming a mom catapults us in this new direction that maybe we never thought we were ever going to even go down. And that was definitely a part of my story. And while I'm going to be sharing some story times today, because ultimately why I'm an infant and toddler sleep coach was because of that entire journey. And there's also so many moms that, used to be in the corporate world and are now in business for themselves or now stay-at-home moms. And there's always, of course, a lot of judgment and, pros and cons on either side. But I want you to leave today's episode, one, either just being inspired by somebody else's story, my story, or to plant seeds to really go within and decide what feels aligned for you. But ultimately, this is just about your mom confidence. And whether that is being in the workforce, being a corporate mom, being in business for yourself, being a stay-at-home mom, really feeling that fire within you, that your choices, whether it's career choices, mom choices, is just really aligned for you because you deserve that either way. And no matter which way it goes, because again, there's always so much. Then I'll share some personal stories here. There's always so much opinions on both sides of it. But when you're left in that limbo and you're trying to figure it out, it really rocks your confidence and you feel uneasy. Am I making the right decisions? So let's just dive in. We are going back to 2017. I had my first son. And prior to that, I had spent about 10 years working in apparel production. And I started off and I was working fabric sourcing, on the manufacturer side of the business. And then I was in the corporate side and I loved what I did. I was really fucking good at what I did. But as I was heading into the direction of starting a family, I was already starting to feel and question, how am I going to do this and bring a child into the world? How am I going to do this and be a mom? Because it didn't feel sustainable for me. I had a very demanding job. And while I loved the security and the paycheck and that season of life, I was I'm not really sure how this is going to work once I have a kid, right? And you just don't know until it's there. But I say that to say that the seeds were already being planted of I'm not sure. I also had no idea what other career I would be stepping into. So that was a little bit scary. And I was just kind of trust falling that, you know what? I'm just going to head into that season of life and whatever's meant for me is meant. And if there's a new opportunity and a new career path that I'm meant to take, then I'm just going to take it. And that's what it is. So fast forward, I have my son. And literally, I had my son at 39 weeks and leading up to the hours the day before I even had him, because I had him a week early, which I had taken 2 weeks off prior to my due date. I'm going to, get my house clean. I'm going to nest. I'm going to go get my nails done, all of these things. And then he came a week early. But up until basically right before I had him, I'm on emails. I'm worried about my team. I'm very, work focused. the second that little boy was in my arms, it was like my entire life shifted. And I'm like, work who? Work where? It was just like not on my priority list. Now, I had a lot of struggles in my first newborn experience with sleep and tongue tie and nursing and all these things. So the first 3 months, of course, is like, you're just in this haze of newborn life. And I was madly in love with my son, but I was struggling with a lot of the things that you're just adjusting into new mom life. And I didn't be connected with anybody and anything close to like getting sleep on track until he was here, right? Obviously, he was like 2-ish months. I had a friend who had shared with me her experience in working with a sleep coach. I had reached out for some support, and a seed was planted about like, this is a thing. Like, this is somebody's job to be a sleep coach to help families like get their baby sleeping. Like, one, that was just wild to me. And I wanted to learn more. One, because I was really struggling with my son's sleep. And two, because I was like, there was just that little intuitive pull that you're like, I want to know more. Now, I was in the thick of it with newborn life. And it's not that I always joke like, oh, apparently I didn't have enough to do, that I was exploring a new career while I was on maternity leave. But that was also on my mind because majority of maternity leave in the United States, if you can barely even call it that, is for crap, right? We barely get anything. So if I remember correctly, it was like, you're on state disability, which gets you X amount of weeks, and then whatever your company does. And then I had saved up PTO. So I miraculously had pulled together 5 months of maternity leave when majority of the time, let's say it's just, a few months. And even that wasn't enough time for me. I got him sleeping right around 4 months, which was life changing. And the entire reason I'm sitting here talking to you today, almost 8 years later, as a sleep coach. But in that last month, between month 4 and month 5, when I was going back to work, I was thriving in motherhood. Like, he was rested. I was rested. I felt like confident. I felt like I could do this. And I was so sad that I had to go back to work. And it's crazy that I get emotional thinking about that from 7+ years ago, that I was like, it just didn't feel right to me. It didn't feel right that I had to like drop my son off at daycare. And even though I had been scouting daycares, the one I wanted to get him into wasn't available. He was on a wait list. And we found this other family daycare, which ironically was right next to work, and it ended up working out. But I was devastated to have to drop him off at daycare and go to work. And it was a big adjustment, as so many of us moms face. And look, on the flip side of that, I know women in my circle who were like so ready to go back to work. They were like, nope, this stay at home idea is just like really not for me. And that's completely fair. It's completely fair, but I was really struggling with it. And when I went back to work, since I worked in fashion and production and, the corporate world, it was majority women. And there were so many women who'd be like, it gets better. It gets better. I heard that so often. You can kind of check in with each other and how you doing? How's the baby? And it wasn't getting better for me. And to, leave out all the other million details in the process. But it was about a year later where I started to have to really check myself and be like, okay, where are we with this? Now, going back to sleep coaching my son and being like, this is incredible and it was life changing for me. I went through training to become a sleep coach when my son was a newborn, and then he was my first baby client at 4 months. And I decided on maternity leave and prior to going back to work that I wanted to test out and explore being a sleep coach on the side, like nights and weekends. And I did that for the first year going back to work before I was like, girl, are you fucking crazy? Like, this is not sustainable either. Here you are in this high demanding job, which didn't change when I went back to work. Now you have another job on top of being a mom for the first time and navigating this and daycare drop-offs and pickups and get home and work and all, like, life was crazy. And I was starting to realize that I was naive. I was naive to this idea that, oh, I could just become a sleep coach and, maybe perfectly build up this business and then walk away from my corporate job and everything's cool. No, I was left with a big decision. And what do you want to do? And there was parts of my corporate job that weren't fulfilling me in a way of feeling like I was contributing, feeling like I was giving back, like feeling like my job in some way had some sort of value in the world. And I was also struggling with that. And I loved this idea of being able to help other moms. Like, my newborn experience was hard. And going through that coaching experience shifted everything for me. It shifted me into mom confidence. It helped me kind of catapult me into this new career career, and many moms experience this. And when I got to that decision, the mom life that I was experiencing, being a corporate working mom and trying to do it all, I was like, this isn't the mom experience that I want. Sidebar, I also really struggled with the idea that I had to work to pay somebody else to take care of my child. It was basically like half of my month, like basically one of my entire paychecks was going to daycare. And I was like, what is this? Like, it also didn't feel natural to me. I had a goal of nursing my son for a year, and I feel very blessed that I was able to hit that goal and beyond. But I also had nursing struggles and milk supply struggles along that journey of trying to go back to work, and you're pumping multiple times a day and rushing to meetings. And it was just like, whoa, that first year was so much. And I had to make the hard decision of, Anne, what do you want to do? Like, you're going to keep in this corporate world, which, hey, salary was nice. Salary was nice, and you have the security, and you have the insurance, and you have the 401k, and you have all of these things, right? And I'm an elder millennial, and I think a lot of our generation was like, this is what you do, right? Like, you go to high school, and then you go to college, and you get this job, and you stick with this job forever, right? Or you stick with the comfort and the security. But intuitively, I felt like in this death and rebirth of becoming a mom, everything was shifting for me, and this entire life and this plan that I thought that I wanted for myself. Why am I getting so emotional right now? It was changing, and I had to sit in that and accept that it was okay to change. It was okay to want something new. It was okay to want a different mom experience than I was having, but I was also scared shitless to walk away from this corporate job into a new job that I loved, but wasn't lucrative enough at the time to like really even remotely balance out what I was making before. And I had savings and, other pieces to my dynamic at home, but I was like, I need to do this. And I didn't just need to do it for myself. I needed to do it for my son. I needed to do it for that experience. And I will never regret that decision. It's been a journey, like, going into business for yourself and starting something new, no matter what that looks like for you, is not easy. And it almost felt weird to me at 30. Let's see, my son was 32 and I had him. So this would have been at 33, that I was like, am I starting over at 33? Again, going back to the mindset that you go to college, you get a job, and these are the things that you do. And that was scary as well. And it has been the most shaping, fulfilling, like, has filled my confidence on levels that I don't think I ever could have imagined. And I say this a lot when I talk about kind of pregnancy and birth and how things change you, that I'm like, he did it. That was a gift that he gave me. That death and that rebirth and becoming a mom was sending me down a path and a journey that I didn't even know that I was headed down. And as a mom, you don't always know what's coming until you're in it. And even myself, I was very much, okay, I'm going to have my son, then I'm going to go back to work, and this is what it's going to look like. And it's okay that those things change. And like I said, I worked in an office with majority of women, and it was very much split, right? Oftentimes, there's women who have a lot of family support and those sorts of things, which I do think makes the leaving your child with family a little bit easier than, essentially dropping your child off with strangers. But there was definitely women who like loved being at work, right? You get to get dressed up and put on makeup and get out of the house and talk to adults all day long. And it's not easy to balance out those things of going home and then jumping into mom life. But oftentimes being at home with your child day in and day out is not easy also. But it just wasn't the mom experience that I was looking for. And also too, a lot of moms can fill me on this. When you go back to work and your child goes to daycare, they start getting sick because they're just around germs. And all of my PTO was going towards my son being sick. And that was also really hard. And I just felt like I was getting in a hole with everything. So nonetheless, let's see, it was 5 months when I went back to work. And then I think he was 17 months old. So basically a year. I went back to work for a year. And then I decided to walk away from corporate America and become a sleep coach full time, which was scary and exciting at the same time. And at that time, I just had him in daycare like 2 or 3 days a week. And it was already starting to be like this really cool balance for me where I got to be there. I got to be there for every drop off and every pickup and every little school thing, and had so much flexibility. And I know that there is also a baseline of privilege in this, right? Not everybody has that privilege to be able to walk away from a job and try something new. But I gotta say this, even the world has changed so much in the past 7, almost 8 years, that there is an abundance of online presence and work that moms and as women in general, anybody can be doing from home and finding these different things. So if you feel that pull at all, that like, I'm not loving what I'm doing, you felt these shifts as a mom, it is at least worth exploring. Even like me, like I couldn't just walk away from my job because I found something new. Like I did that for an entire year before I was finding my way. But don't just sit on that, because those are the things that knock us off of our confidence. Those are the things that start shifting us into not making self-aligned decisions. That's where we start resenting mom life and feeling unhappy and unfulfilled and something's missing and we want to get back to our old life and those sorts of things, when really our children, in a way, spiritually, I believe this anyways, they are here for a reason. They're also a part of our healing and our growth and our transformation. And even though things like career changes can be wildly scary, I just want you to know that I've never regretted it one day in my life. Like in one day in the past almost 8 years, I now have 2 children now. I have a 7 and a 3-year-old, and I've never had to take my youngest to daycare because I work from home. Now, look, working from home is not easy. It's a constant shuffle. I also homeschool my boys and mainly my eldest right now. And it's a constant, juggling of the schedule and shifting gears and being pulled in a million different directions and multitasking. And I still wouldn't change it for anything, because I get to be the mom that I want to be and the mom experience that I had always hoped for. But that, what you hope for, is deeply unique mom to mom. And I can't stress this enough, that there is no right or wrong. Whether you are being pulled into a new career direction, whether that's outside of the home or not, just lean into that pull, because if you're feeling it, if there's that planted seed of desire for whatever it is for you, it means that it already exists for you, right? It already exists in some capacity. And it's just about kind of trusting and continuing to make those inspired action steps until you're getting to that ultimate place where you're like, hey, I think this is where my life is going. So that is my story time for tonight of how I became a sleep coach. But really, that it's okay to be making these mom changes. And I want you to feel so aligned in that for you. And I just wish that for you as well. So if you're in a season of uncertainty and you're like, yeah, I just don't know what that means. I was there, girl. I was there for some time. And it is that sense of like, the ground beneath you isn't super stable yet, is really uncomfortable. But just know that get okay being uncomfortable. Like that whole season is okay, because it is a part of the process. I'm somebody who's very much been driven by the end result and the goal and how do I get here, and not accepting of the journey and the discomfort and the missteps and the errors and the finding my way. I have failed that many times, where I'm so focused on the end result of what I want that I miss the learning and the growing in the process. So I can say that many, many years later into mom life and different changes within my career and those sorts of things. But if you're in that season of discomfort right now, just know that you are exactly where you need to be, and you are divinely protected in that, mama. So I hope that there was something in today's episode that was for you and that resonated with you. And I'm looking forward to the next episode. So until the next time we chat, lots of love. Whether you're a tired mom struggling with your little one's sleep, or an expecting mom looking for empowerment and advocacy as you prepare for birth, I'm here to show up for you with proven strategies and education to elevate your journey. You deserve to feel heard and given the tools to have success. Mama, you do not have to navigate your pregnancy or sleep struggles alone. Head over to empoweredwithann.com to discover how we can support you. Confidence, empowerment, and peace are just a click away.